Joining us now is our NBC News team, who are both in Phoenix, Arizona. Mike Memoli is covering all things Harris campaign, and Vaughn Hillyard has the view from Trump world. Mike and Vaughn, I hope you guys can go out for a nice drink later tonight. But first, Mike, to you. Harris held a gaggle with reporters to address those protector of women comments from the former president, and today is releasing a new ad on abortion. So how heavily can we expect the campaign to lean into this in the closing days?
Well, and of course, Allie, I wish you could join us for that drink. But listen, it's amazing that we're already at the point so close to Election Day where we're talking about the final visits these candidates are making to these battleground states today. We're going to see the vice president here on stage within the next hour, her last event in Arizona. And listen, you know this as well as anybody, that Democrats had been counting on reproductive rights being a major motivating force for a powerful electorate, which is women voters. We saw the way it powered Democrats to a surprising set of victories in the midterm elections in 2022. Harris campaign advisors have been pointing to 2022 as the more relevant comparison when trying to judge these early voting and turnout numbers than 2020 to indicate that. And as we've had a debate for much of this week about who's insulting what group of voters and whether they intended to or not, this is a moment that the Harris campaign is seizing on, not just because it really calcifies what they think has been a powerful issue for them, but it has particular potency in several of these battleground states. Michigan, where we saw that so motivating in 2022, still here to this day in 2024. But Arizona, where it is on the ballot, literally a constitutional referendum to enshrine abortion rights. And so we saw the vice president already address this before she flew to Arizona. Our colleague Amisha Alcindor will be speaking with the vice president potentially in the next hour as well. We'll bring you those remarks, that interview, when it happens live. And I have a feeling that that's going to be another part of her closing message, which we've been seeing on the trail all week.
Yeah, you got to imagine, Mike. And the thing I think about with Michigan and Arizona is, yes, the abortion piece that they were able to put in their state constitutions, but also the fact that both of those are states with proof positive of electing women in executive roles. It makes me wonder how this focus on abortion jives with the vice president's broader closing message. Does the message that voters are hearing depend on whether you're hearing from the candidate directly, or perhaps the onslaught of ads that swing state voters are getting? God bless them.
Well, the musical performance is about to begin here, Allie, so I apologize if it's getting even louder behind me. But, you know, we have seen, as I've gone state by state, the kinds of TV ads that are being aired in each individual market. And we tend to focus on the issue of the day nationally, but it is remarkable to see what is being tailored to the particular electorates of each state. But the overarching theme for Vice President Harris in these closing days has been unity and, frankly, playing into what they think is also a powerful argument, exhaustion with Donald Trump. Vice President Harris was just greeted on the tarmac a few moments ago by several of the Republicans who have endorsed her candidacy, former Republicans, we should say. John Giles, the former mayor of Mesa, Arizona, as well as Jeff Flake, the former U.S. senator as well. So this all fits into the larger narrative. They think that she will, whether you agree with her or not, try to bring a bridge across the aisle to bring this country together, whereas Donald Trump is simply trying to divide and continue to stoke division in this country.
Yeah, that's so central to the message here, Mike. And in the last few seconds I have with you, can you talk through the travel plans that she's going to be making and the stops she'll be making through Election Day? Specifically, I'm interested in Pennsylvania. Might there be a blank space, for lack of a better word, for one key campaigner that was a big endorsement but we haven't seen on the campaign trail?
I think I know who you're talking about.
I mean, I have to.
But as we look at the vice president's schedule here in the closing days, it really does tell you about how they view their paths to victory. Here is the final trip out west today, making also multiple stops in Nevada. She's going to be back in Wisconsin, back in Michigan. Also, that Sun Belt strategy on display, as we see on Saturday, Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina. We are all waiting to see if we see Taylor Swift. We've already had Bruce Springsteen. We have Los Tigres del Norte behind me now. We had Mumford & Son, Maggie Rogers. There is no bigger star attraction, though, that would really light a fire heading into Election Day than Taylor Swift. And I'm sorry to say I got nothing for you. And I wish I could tell you I also had some lyrics to play to drop on you as well. But, you know, not really my jam.
You know I'm going to be hounding you over text until we get an answer about this. Vaughn, I want to pivot to you in Battleground, Arizona, as we wait for that interview interview that Mike helped to tease us on, which is Yamiche Alcindor likely speaking with the vice president in the next few minutes. We'll, of course, bring that to folks as soon as we see it happening. But, Vaughn, you're also in battleground Arizona. Trump's first event today, though, was in blue New Mexico, and he'll campaign in more purple Virginia this weekend. We've seen him, though, in both California and New York this month. Is this confidence or is it something else? Explain this strategy.
Right, and if I may first real fast, Allie, Taylor Swift started her Eras tour right next door to where we are here.
Did.
And Donald Trump, we should note, is now ending his 2024 tour here in Arizona today. This is his last visit out west. He's going to be holding a rally in Nevada, in the suburbs of Las Vegas, too. That's his last Nevada stop. So this is the end of his Sun Belt Western campaign tour. But you noted that there is a third place he is stopping, and that's right now in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which we should know Donald Trump lost by 11 percentage points in 2020. Yet he is making the case that he is building such a big coalition this time around that he's going to be able to win states like Virginia and New Mexico. And I think it's important to note, though, also some of the first words out of his statement to this Albuquerque crowd here a few moments ago was that their elections are rigged and that he's going to win. We've already seen over the course of the last days and weeks Donald Trump lay the foundation to claim if he loses on Tuesday night that the election was taken from him. Of course, there's no evidence of fraud here at this time.
I remember, too, in 2016, doing a stop in New Mexico, of course, seeing him stop in other blue states. So he's obviously trying to push through that same path now. But the other thing, Vaughn, that we've heard him say variations of is these protector of women comments. I mean, he's been saying some version of this "I cherish" or "I'll protect women" line for years, while also adding most recently, "My advisors don't want me to say it." So does the campaign think that this is at all the right strategy?
Let's be very clear. For Donald Trump, he is trying to reach women voters to the extent that Donald Trump can. And through his own messaging, he has been vocal that he said that the reason why Republican gubernatorial and Senate candidates lost in 2022 midterms was because they struggled to message to women, particularly on reproductive rights. And that's where he said that it's incumbent upon the Republicans running in 2024, including himself, to make clear to voters, women voters, especially around the country, that they have a more moderate stance on abortion and that they do not want to have strict abortion measures around the country. But for Donald Trump, the difficult reality is that, like here in Arizona, there is that referendum on the ballot that would codify abortion protection rights. But also it goes down to the Senate level, right? Carrie Lake is the Senate candidate here. And in 2022, when she was running for governor, she said that she would defend what was called the territorial ban, which would even punish doctors who perform abortions. Yeah. And so there is, for Donald Trump, he is running around a Republican Party that is frankly made sure through the overturning of Roe v. Wade that it is not viewed necessarily in a positive light by a great many women in the electorate around the country.
And we're going to talk about the X factor that is abortion in just a few minutes. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, Vaughn, is Trump clearly wants to make hay of Biden's garbage comment. But beyond firing up the base, is that actually something that's going to move voters at this point? Or is the Trump campaign in the waning days just in full-on red meat mode?
Right. It may not move, right, your independent or the reticent conservatives in places like Maricopa County, but it is potentially going to galvanize that cadre of MAGA faithful support. For Donald Trump, so much of this is about turnout and ensuring that those people that consider themselves Donald Trump supporters, in fact, are Donald Trump voters by Tuesday, and particularly in the rural parts of the state, like here in Arizona, being able to juice that turnout, which they did in 2020. And they were almost able to make up deficits in the suburbs and places like Maricopa County. That is where some of that red meat, that is going to turn out. And Donald Trump wants to have all of those Trump supporters hear the comments about garbage in order to make sure that they get out and they're angry and vote here over the next 5 days.
Vaughn, my friend, thank you. Keep up the amazing work. Before that, Mike Memoli. Please, Vaughn, go buy Mem a margarita to say thank you. And joining me now with a look at how Election Day could play out is Chief Political Analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck, if there's one thing we do know about this race is that it's going to be close. But what are the most likely scenarios for how this actually breaks down?
Well, look, I want to also sort of do it the way I'm watching election night. Look, here's our map for you so you can watch along with us here. And this is kind of fun. You can keep track. So here's the basic map as it's set up with the 7 battleground states, not given to either end. So basically, Harris is starting with a baseline of 226, Trump with 219. As you can see, of these 7 remaining states, Harris has 20 paths to 270. Trump has 21 paths. And yes, there are 3 paths that could get you to 269, 269. But I start out looking at this as a 2-state race right now. Pennsylvania, North Carolina. And if the 2 of them split it, we're in for a long week, maybe a month. If one candidate wins both, I think suddenly we have a president-elect by dinner time on Wednesday. So let me show you. So let's do it this way. Let's assume Harris sweeps them both. Watch what happens. She just wins Pennsylvania, North Carolina. She just needs 9 more electoral votes. Well, the assumption is if you win Pennsylvania, you're probably going to get Michigan and Wisconsin, but she only needs 1 of them, right? So if she somehow sweeps both Pennsylvania and North Carolina, something we will know by sunrise Wednesday morning, Allie, then it won't matter what happens out west. Just Wisconsin would give her the 271, or a Michigan, right? So you see how suddenly she puts that away. Now let's do it in the reverse. Let's have Trump win them both and see what happens here. It brings him to 254. Well, if he wins that, you got to assume he's going to get Georgia as well. And guess what? It's over. He can lose Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona, and he'd still be at 270 electoral votes. The point is, that just to me shows you how important the 2 of them are together. Now, let's assume a split decision. So, and you see here, this is the Southern. Does she do better? I believe if she is doing better with older white women because of the abortion issue, it should help her in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin, and she can get to 270 and lose the entire Sun Belt. And let's put it all in red here so you can see what this would do. And as you can see, it's astonishing. Really only 1 state in the South would she carry. Yes, Virginia. Some of us argue that it's already seceded from the Confederacy. But basically, she'd do this with just winning New Mexico. She wouldn't have to win anything in the Southeast. None of these western states, and she can get there. Now, let's do it the other way, because it's the other way, frankly, that I think creates the nightmare. So if they split it this way, as you can see, Harris is short. Let me get us back to a blank space here a minute. All right, so I can show you how I think this ends up becoming a nightmare scenario. I still think Georgia ends up in Trump's column. But if they split it this way, where she wins North Carolina and he wins Pennsylvania, let's go ahead and assume she does win Wisconsin there. And let's go ahead and assume she does win Michigan. She needs to find another state to do that. Is it Nevada? Is it Arizona? It won't matter, but here's what I can promise you. If this is the scenario where he wins Pennsylvania, she wins North Carolina, and is able to hang on to the other 2 blue wall states, which polling has indicated she's slightly stronger in those 2 than she is in Pennsylvania, all the lawyers, all of Washington, you, me, America, we're going to be either in Phoenix or Las Vegas arguing over every single ballot because the presidency is going to be on the line depending on the outcome of those states. So this is why at the end of the day, it all starts with what happens in Pennsylvania, North Carolina. We will know those first before we know everything else. And as you can say, it takes us on some interesting paths that could create not just a long night, not just a long week, but potentially a protracted legal fight all month, particularly if we're all just trying to figure out the ballots in Nevada. My nightmare scenario is Las Vegas for the month of November.
So we now know what keeps Chuck Todd up at night. I have to say my heart kind of dropped into my stomach at that point when you're talking about how long this process could be, but we all are priming viewers, voters, everyone to know that it could be a lengthy process. Chuck, the last thing I want to get you on in a little bit of time left is you have in your latest column about abortion as the wild card presidential issue.
Yeah.
You write in part that it's been fascinating to watch Trump overperform all of the Republican Senate candidates. And one explanation you offer is that he is performing better with abortion rights-focused Republicans than any other Republican on the ballot. That almost seems surprising to me, given the ways that he's held a million positions on this issue. I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
Allie, you just said it. Given that he's held a million positions on these issues. You know who hasn't held a million position on this issue? David McCormick. You know who hasn't held a million positions? Mike Rogers. You see where I'm going. It's the old videotape. This is what strategists on both sides have told me. There's the reason these Democratic Senate candidates have been just having more success. They've been pounding their Republican opponents for things they've said before Roe was overturned about Roe v. Wade. That need to get rid of it or celebrating it. The old videotape of Donald Trump is what? Well, in some cases, he sounds like a pro-choice Democrat, right? And he has gone out of his way to say he doesn't like the 6-week bans. So his ability to muddy his message has been very helpful to him. But it leads you to the real possibility he could carry a lot of these states and not bring a single Senate candidate with him because of the abortion issue. There clearly is a handful of voters who are voting Trump and Democrat as a protection on the abortion issue, which I know maybe a lot of people didn't have in their bingo card, but when you start to think about the old video on all these candidates, I think voters do think Trump's not that serious versus the other Republicans running for congressional offices that they are more serious about abortion bans or limiting access.
After the fact that he put justices on the court that ultimately were the ones that overturned Roe.
Voters are voters, Allie,
yes.
right? Everybody consumes this information differently.
Absolutely. Chuck Todd, thank you as always.
You got it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.